So today I want to start this video off with a question. And that question is, are you ready for what's coming? Are you ready for the inevitable that is going to happen? Now, I'm not here to tell you, or I'm not here to say that the sky is falling and the world is going to come to an end. I simply want to emphasize that life is going to be complicated, and life is complicated, but why is life complicated? And what is our part in the complication of what it is that we call life? Because if you think about it, even though life is complicated, we are the ones that complicate it even further, right? Whether it's our desire for things or money, or taking extravagant vacations, or the vehicles that we drive. Oftentimes we complicate our lives and we don't even realize it. We don't think about the complications that we create. So welcome back to another episode of Sweat Talk. My name is Chad. And a lot of you guys are going to notice or have noticed that I've been MIA here recently. Now, I'm not at liberty to go into great detail, but it is for good reason. And I think if you stick around for just a couple minutes, you'll understand. So a couple of days ago, I was watching a video from my man Mark over at his YouTube channel is Retiree as Me. And Mark, he's a guy that he is retired. He's fairly young. He's 53, and he's retired and he's comfortable, but he is hustling with multiple YouTube channels, and he's absolutely crushing it. The other day he shared, part of his story where he started to use his YouTube channel and his work didn't like it. So they essentially put a gag order on him, and eventually it led to him being let go from his job. And really all I can say to that is that really resonated with me. So if your boss came to you and said, hey, I got to let you go, would you be ready for that? How would that impact your life? So would you be okay with that? Have you been able to set yourself up into a situation that doesn't impact you negatively? Most of us, myself included, and in the short term, it would impact me. Like, I love my job. I love what I do. I make fantastic money, and I believe in what I do. Now, that doesn't mean that I want to do it forever. And in fact, my goal is to retire at 50 in about 4.5 years. And I plan on sticking to that goal. And if things keep continuing in the trajectory that they are now, that is 100% an achievable goal. But this was a goal that I started, 16, 20 years ago, something like that. But I have put myself into a financial situation to where if I was let go tomorrow, I would probably prosper, because that would allow me more time to be able to focus on my passions. And hell, I could keep growing the YouTube channel, and that would also help supplement the loss of income, potentially. But with that, the threat of potentially losing my job, that still leaves me with an uneasy feeling. And like I said, financially we're good, but I've allowed my employer to control my life, and I've allowed my employer to own me, just as many of us, or many of you, do as well. Now, I've tried to make this video multiple times now, but I hold so much animosity that it continues to. Each time I've tried to make this video, it's turned out extremely negative. And I don't want to turn this into a bitch session, because like I said, I'm not allowed to go into details, but I can't help but to think, how many people in the world would be absolutely devastated and their life would be completely torn apart if they lost their job tomorrow? And then so, this one comes, it comes especially true, like if we're looking at the thousands of employers or federal employees, that have lost their job here recently. There's a guy, his name's Clay. He's another YouTuber. He is a veterans benefits type channel. His channel is CivDiv. And I'll put both these guys' channel links in the description. But so he did a video about 1,000 VA employees being laid off. And this is one of the things that turns out negative for me, because I despise the VA. I think the VA as a whole, the agency as a whole, is absolute garbage. Now, I guess I'm probably speaking more about the VBA, Veterans Benefits Administration, and I know that there's good people there, but like, I feel like a jerk because I don't sympathize with these people that are being let go. And the saddest part about that is because I have such a disdain for the VA that I just can't sympathize, because the administration is just absolutely atrocious. So what it does though is it makes me think about the inevitable. Okay, like all these things that have been happening over about the last month, you know, they make me think about the inevitable. And that the inevitable is there is going to be financial hardships. They are going to happen, and it doesn't matter who's in office, or it doesn't matter how secure something is, you know. And it's not necessarily meaning that you're going to lose your job, but you know, the air conditioner in your house breaks, the roof springs a leak, the water heater takes a crap, your car engine blows up. You know, there is going to be some sort of financial emergency in your future, and it is the inevitable. It is what's coming. So when that happens, are you ready for it? Have you put yourself in a good enough financial situation to where that doesn't really matter, or where you're not going to be affected by it much, or even at all? Now, like I've said, and you know, I've shared many times in several videos, that back when I was in my 20s, I got laid off 4 times in 1 year. And you know, the amount of stress I was under, it was unworldly, it was ungodly, and we recovered from it. And that's also part of the reason why I don't sympathize for the people at the VA, is because we're all going to face those situations. We're all going to face, you know, either being fired, or I shouldn't say we all will, but the majority of us will face either, you know, getting laid off or fired or whatever. It's going to happen eventually throughout the course of our lives. But I think ultimately the biggest problem is we don't set ourselves up for a solid financial future. Being laid off as many times as I was, and going through that amount of stress that my wife and I were under, we learned from our poor situation. And we decided we're never going back to that. We are never going to put ourselves through that situation again. So there again, how many of those people, you know, that got laid off from the VA, or you know, the thousands of government employees that are getting laid off, for that matter. You know, how many of those people have actually set themselves up to be in a situation where they can actually prosper, or not be badly or deeply impacted by losing their job? Because like I said, it's going to rain. Like there is going to be some sort of a financial hardship, and what are you doing to prevent it? And I think that's one of the things that sets me apart from most people, is when I was in my 20s and I went through all of that, I learned from my mistake. I learned that it is going to rain, and that I cannot finance myself and leverage myself to the gills and just go spending money all willy-nilly, and that I have to invest in my future. I have to do something to secure my future and my family's future. Because back then I was able to realize that there's nobody coming to save me. And most people don't realize that. You know, there's still people in the world that think that the government is coming to save them, or that the government has their best interest at heart. I'll never understand that. So back to the question of, why is life so complicated? You know, have you ever actually sat back and thought about that? Like, why is my life so complicated? What makes my life so complicated? And what am I doing to uncomplicate or to simplify my life? And when you think about that, then most people are going to realize that they're not doing anything to simplify their lives. And in fact, they're allowing their employer to pull their strings like a marionette and own them to the point that they don't have control of their life, and they don't have control of the outcome of any outcome. And I think this is a question that we don't often ask ourselves, you know, because we don't think about the people that we allow into our lives to complicate our lives. We don't think about how complicated, you know, going out and buying that sweet car, or that awesome purse, or that fancy vacation, the big house. We don't think about the complication that those things bring. We don't think about the consequences of the inevitable scenario that is going to come in the form of a piss poor financial situation, or a difficult financial situation. But if we think about it, if we actually step back and we analyze the situation that we're in right now, you know, a lot of people are in a really good situation right now. A lot of people are in an extremely piss poor situation. You know, I guess it goes both ways. But when things are good, it's easy to live for the minute, and it's easy to forget about that inevitable situation that's going to come. You know, so we don't plan our financial future. Instead, we go out and we put a bunch of money on a credit card, or go buy a giant house that we can't afford, or a car that we can't afford, or you know, whatever. We enamor ourselves with just ridiculous amounts of debt. And I see it in the comments all the time that people they will never be able to retire. And then when you go ask them, you know, what kind of car do you drive? Then they're almost inevitably, it's going to be a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 car, and they're going to be living in a house that's way more than they ever need, and they're going to have credit card debt out the wazoo. But they want to blame their employer, or they want to blame somebody else for their boss, when the situation isn't. It's not that they have an income problem. It's because they have a spending problem. But we don't want to address that. We don't want to admit to ourselves that we can't afford something. Instead, people, they go car shopping and they shop for payments that they can afford instead of shopping for a vehicle that they can afford. You know, people, they'll hear those lies that you can't find a decent car for under $10,000, $15,000. You know, who's got $10,000, $15,000 to go spend on a car? And the reality is you're just not willing to drive a $2,500 or $3,000 car. So instead, they'll make up the excuse that it's going to be more of a headache, because if you buy a car for $2,500, all it's going to do is break down. Well, I'm here to tell you that I paid $2,500 for my commuter, and it treats me great. However, most people wouldn't be caught dead seen in it, because they're more concentrated, more focused on how other people are going to see them or perceive them because they're driving a shitty car. But then you think about the house, right? Like, you know, I live in a very small, modest house. I mean, you know, we can afford a much larger mortgage, but why? Just because I can afford that payment doesn't necessarily mean that I can afford it, because that's going to set my retirement goals back. That's going to prevent me from retiring at 50, and it's going to slow down the progress of my plans. I am not willing to do that. But then we think about the larger house. You know, somebody's got to clean a much bigger square footage, so that creates more complication. You know, then you know, maybe you end up with 2 air conditioners. Now you have a larger roof that you have to repair. You know, the list goes on and on. So why is it that we need that bigger house? Why do we need that fancier car? And the only thing that I can come up with is we're too concerned with other people's opinions of us, and we're too worried about how somebody is going to look at us, or how we will be perceived. Hello. So in essence, what we're doing is we are sacrificing our financial future and potential retirement because of the opinions of other people, instead of the reality of our own situation and our dreams. Now, I'm not trying to stand here and tell you that you shouldn't have nice things, or that you don't deserve to live a nice lifestyle, or you shouldn't live a lifestyle and you should live off of beans and rice for the rest of your life so that you can afford to eventually retire. You know, I mean, everybody's situation is going to be different, and I believe that we should all be able to enjoy knowing what it's like to feel, or to be wealthy of some sort. And you know, wealth is what you think wealth is, right? Like, it's not, you can use a textbook definition, but my definition of wealth and your definition of wealth is going to be completely different. Wealth, in my opinion, is living a simple life, and I live a simple life. I live the simplest life that I possibly can. And you know, I do enjoy nice things. I do have nice vehicles. I don't drive my commuter car isn't exactly the nicest, but I do have my hot rods, and I do have my nice cars. But the difference is, between me and most people, mine are paid for, and they are older. But I'm okay with that, because they're exactly what I want, and they allow me the ability to live a simple life. Because simplicity and comfort, to me, that's true wealth. Fuck you money, that's true wealth. And it doesn't take as much as most people think. People think that they have to have $2, $3, $4, $5 million in the bank in order to have essential fuck you money. You don't. You have to understand that that you have to learn how to live below your means. You have to learn how to invest regularly. You have to stop listening to those naysayers that say that the sky is falling and the real estate market's going to crash, or the stock market's going to crash. We're all going to be broke and we're never going to have anything. I'm here to tell you the exact opposite. Who cares what these people say? Stop listening to that nonsense. Stop listening to that bullshit and invest in yourself, invest in your future, and take ownership of the complications in your life that you find. You know, what is your part in those complications? Why is your life so complicated? Is it the people that you have in your life? Is it the spending habits you have? What is it that complicates your life? What can you do to simplify your life? You know, because a lot of people, it's not finances that complicates their lives. It's the lack of a relationship, or it's the relationships that they're in. So these are things that I can't define for everybody. But these are questions that we all need to ask ourselves, because I believe that true wealth is going to be found from simplicity and giving. I don't think that true wealth comes from how much money you make, although it may make life more complicated. But most people also, when they start making more money, they're going to succumb to lifestyle inflation. So, you know, you see that all the time, right? People say somebody's making $50,000 a year and they get a raise to say 60. So they get that additional $10,000 a year. Well, that means it's time to upgrade the house or go buy a new car. And in my work, all of us, we all saw a fairly substantial pay increase. And before that that additional pay even landed in our bank accounts, you started seeing all kinds of brand new vehicles all over the place. That money was spent well before any of us even received it. But that's one of the things that separates me from most people. Most of the people that I know, or most of my coworkers, whatever, is I didn't go out and buy a new car. I didn't upgrade my house. I didn't go buy new furniture, and you know, I don't care about that shit. I care about living a simple life. I care about not allowing my employer to control my life. For the next 4.5 years, that's something that I'm just going to deal with. But the thing is I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's there. And if I wanted to retire earlier, I could. Or if I wanted to quit my job earlier, I could. But I have my goal. I have my financial goals. I have my future goals. I have my future planned out to where I don't have to care what anybody thinks, so that my life will be as simple as possible and I can give as much as possible. Ultimately, being able to live a life of true wealth. So if you made it this far, do me a favor and go down in the comments section and write that word simple. Just that one word, simple. And you know, because all of these things, all of the stuff that we're programmed that we think that we need, all of that garbage, all it does is complicate our lives and prevent us from seeing or living and experiencing a simple life. And you know, this goes back to like I talk about it all the time, and how the Department of Education has failed us, right? And most people don't even understand or know the true origins of the Department of Education. And the reality is the Department of Education was actually designed by Andrew Carnegie to create cooperative robots that will produce. You know, Andrew Carnegie did not directly create the Department of Education. However, he had a nonprofit organization that modeled the Department of Education to create people that will produce good, compliant robots that will consume, produce, and comply. Look up the origins of the coffee break and understand that the origins of the coffee break was designed for productivity, not for the workers themselves. It was actually to get women out there in the workforce so that they could get more compliant workers and robots. That's where the coffee break came from. So most people don't realize it, and we need to make our life simple. We owe it to ourselves, our families, and our future to make our life simple and stop consuming, stop complying, and produce for ourselves. Quit producing for somebody else who could give a shit about you. And ultimately, make sure that you put away enough money, any extra 10, 20 bucks, whatever extra you can, and invest it into your future. It's not hard. Just a simple Dow index fund and an S&P index fund, and just automatically auto deposit into that account and let it roll. Don't touch it. And before you know it, you're going to find yourself in a wealthy situation. You're going to find your financial system, your financial situation is going to be far better than it ever has been, or far better than you ever dreamt it could possibly be. And it's all because you lived a simple life. You simplified your life. Because ultimately, your life, your future, your family's future, it depends on you and your decisions. The choices that you make to simplify it or not, to simplify or complicate your life. Ultimately, that lands back on you. That lands back in your lap. And you are the only one that has control over that. You are the only one that can dictate the outcome of your life. And nobody else has that kind of an impact on you. Nobody else should be given the power to dictate you or your life. And I don't give a shit if that's your employer, your friends, your family, whoever. You are the one that can dictate your life. Because if somebody else is dictating it for you, you gave them that power. You allowed that person to dictate your life, and you allowed that person to complicate your life rather than simplify it. So with that, I think I have everything ironed out as far as being able to continue to produce regular content. I don't think it will be every day. Well, I know it's not going to be every day again. My goal is to have videos uploaded 3 times a week. And I hope like hell that this video didn't come out too negative, and I hope that it did nothing more than to just open your eyes and reassess the situation, reassess your life, and understand that there is something coming, but it's up to you to dictate how you are affected. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for all those super thanks that you've given me, and all of the support and all the positivity that you guys have given me and my family and this channel. I'm grateful for every single one of you guys. I want to thank you guys for showing up. I hope that you're showing up for yourselves, and I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful day. Peace.